Test. 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 Perfect. Test. Test.
Order. President Daniels will be joining us a little later. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Mr. Brockvogel. Yes?
Thank you, Board Director Bettinger. You have before you tonight a proposed RFP. This is a workshop to go through that. These are just sort of a collection of thoughts based on what's been used before. And certainly there's no requirement that we use those, and we're here to do your bidding, and we will modify this or do a wholesale swap depending on what you like. But the first document you have is a suggested timeline. And again, these are just suggestions. The question of whether we end up in executive session certainly is a matter of your discretion. And depending on what we talk about in executive session or proposed executive session, we may or may not be able to get in there, but it's on here for your consideration. So that takes us through a couple meetings, and so we have this agenda item as well for your consideration at the next meeting, and the main document is the RFP itself. I would direct your attention to a typo on 2A on the first page. That should say demonstrate ability, not demonstrated ability. And then the other thing that you may find glaringly absent in Section 4 is the type of pay, the extent of pay, how the consultant would be paid. We didn't put that in there. I think we were sort of deferring to you all for a discussion on that. But typically in a consulting contract, they would be paid on an hourly basis and submit invoices at an hourly cost, delineate like a lawyer would. And I guess what we'd suggest is that, or in the alternative, just punting and saying to the proposers, propose your payment method, your pay to the extent that we're going to get paid, the not to exceed limit, that kind of thing.
So I know this was one of my specific questions when we were budgeting. So I was told we budgeted for a superintendent search. So what amount was budgeted for it?
We did not budget for superintendent search. We've talked about putting that in the budget. We did not know when we did our budget in May that we were going to need to do a superintendent search. So we've talked about just setting aside dollars for those changes. So we have set aside approximately, I think, maybe around $150,000. It may be a little bit more. I can check into that part. But again, it depends on what the board is doing. That's just an amount based on what may be typically spent, and includes other costs which are somewhat controllable in addition to the contract. So travel for however many in-person interviews you might do for candidates, or if the board is going to go that particular district, or any of those pieces would be included in that. But like I said, that's somewhat controllable cost as well. But all of that goes into it. So it's not just the contract for the services for the organization or individual that's going to assist with this work. Those are those pieces as well.
Can someone enlighten me with, and perhaps you need to do some research on this, but what does a average superintendent search look like dollar-wise for a district this size? I mean, how much did it cost us when we went after Dr. Vargas or Dr. Watts?
I personally researched this whenever we found out Dr. Watts was leaving, and I think it was 40 to 150K is about the average, is what I saw.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that things happened that weren't planned, like the visit to Georgia for Debbie and I to go visit Dr. Watts's place. So if that's something the board wants to do, you should discuss early. If you do, look for folks who are outside of the area, because that was an unanticipated cost.
Okay.
But so I don't know if that's included in the 150. I think it is, but I'm not sure. but it wasn't budgeted.
Thank you.
I remember that.
So are you saying that 40 or 50 was the initial cost with
I
Vargas?
seem
and
to
Watts?
remember more than that. I don't
It
know about
seems
Dr.
low.
Vargas, yeah, but Dr. Watts, it
Low to me.
was about, I think it was in the 70s.
That seems about right to me. We were thinking today anywhere between 30 to 90, but it really just depends on what you're buying. And those RFPs will come back. There'll probably be a range of services they offer. And sometimes salary surveys are a little expensive, so we put in here just the ability to use secondary sources if they want. They don't have to make it from scratch. Those are fairly reliable based on public information from Milliman and other surveys.
So when they come back, you'll get a more accurate account of what they can offer for that dollar
Yeah.
amount. Okay, thank you.
And so what we said approximately, to confirm what Mr. Brock Vogel was saying as well, and what he said is we said about 80,000 approximately for the firm supports, whatever organization or individual the board may choose. And then approximately $20,000 for other incidentals, including travel or other pieces that may be related to this. And again, that's controllable and negotiable, but that's what we were thinking as an approximate amount.
Yeah, I think it's really important to outline what it is we want the search firm to do first. For example, this one, it's coming out of the 2014, but I noticed community input was not in here. And that was a big process we went through for Dr. Watts. We had, I think, 3 nights of that. Meeting with staff, meeting with community, I think 2 community meetings, I believe, with business leaders and so forth. So that might be something also, when it gets down to the finalist, what would you like to see happen in the community?
Yeah.
So-
I absolutely think we should have community input and student input. I mean, not just, business leaders, but just in general, student input and community input.
Yeah.
Every stakeholder should have a say.
I would agree with that as well, like our union partners and associations, that should be included as far as that goes to community input. I was gonna say student input, so I'm not gonna say it. I guess my question I have, is it customary then, like, I heard 20,000 for travel budget, so is that not travel, you said other expenses like travel? So is it
Incidental.
customary then that we fly them out and visit the district on our expense? Is that how that goes? Because I'm not really sure what this looks like necessarily.
Well, if I may, sometimes boards who can't, gather a quorum and do business will appoint 2 out of the 5, for example, a committee. And they would do the traveling and then report back to the board. That's one option, keep costs down, keep it less cumbersome. But yeah, I think some site visits are typical in this kind of spot. Yeah, I don't know how Jewel feels, but that's my experience with city administration.
They are. Typically for larger districts, that is typical, and definitely, so if the board is not going to travel and do a site visit, then you're probably talking about numerous or multiple visits for a candidate through multiple rounds. So multiple iterations of that in person would likely then happen. And then, of course, COVID has given us the opportunity to leverage technology in a different way and to conduct some of those sessions in other ways too. So it's possible, and we may have new avenues in doing this moving forward as well.
Can we go through because I have notes throughout, and I wonder if we can
Yeah.
just go page by page.
That makes sense.
I also have comments on the timeline, so I don't know what's the best way to proceed. Go through this
Well,
first.
let's go through the proposal.
Yeah, let's go through the proposal and then discuss the
I think would
timeline.
be the logical.
Okay.
So
Each one?
do we want to, in the introduction, also indicate that there's going to be new board directors, if that's going to have an impact on their work, that,
Certainly can. I think if I'm a candidate, I would want to know the board's changeover, so.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, if you could also add titles, I think that'd be good for them to know who will be contacting them. Denise is the board president.
Oh, yes, right.
Anything else in the introduction?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we looked at, there were a few things on number 2, but first, I'm wondering if we can, I'm assuming this was done, but the dates, if we've checked everything, like March 1st is coming after the President's Week. July 1st is a Friday. Are we all good with that? July 1st, they're starting employment on July 1st, 2022, which is a Friday. Is there a reason for it
I
to
guess
be?
the beginning of payroll, that's what I would think.
Yes.
Okay,
It's the beginning of the pay period, and it would start some of the fiscal year rollover pieces too for staff. And it would be a good time for that individual to start so that they could be in board and familiar before the school year starts.
okay.
I'm curious about that March 1st, 2022. That's 2 months to do a lot of work, really. I mean, is that realistic?
I think Dr. Watts was March 15th, somewhere there. I'm not sure, somewhere in the
Yeah,
middle.
those were similar time constraints, but that doesn't mean we have to do it again.
I mean, because you're going to have new board directors and it's going to be January, probably when the real work begins, and that just gives you 60 days. I don't know. It's a lot to accomplish.
And that President's Week is right prior.
And when you have community input like you're talking about, to get all that set up, I don't know. I don't know if that's achievable.
Is it something we could, intends to have a new superintendent selected by March 1st, 2022, and no later than May 1st, 2022? So it gives a spread. I mean, the stretch goal is March 1st, but no later than May 1st. That way we can,
I think the only challenge with that is most people have jobs by May. So I think that, like most superintendents, I think have an idea. So if they haven't heard by that time,
right.
I think it's more, what if we just said like April? What if we just kind of said, just extended it, March 1st through, through April?
Tax day.
I know, right? The 1st, not the 15th.
Okay.
We have to decide this at a board meeting, right? So shouldn't it be by whatever board meeting, or does it matter? We're just gonna say by April 1st. When we have a
Oh, I
meeting.
see what you're saying. As far as
Or
voting,
we
yeah.
decide kind of
Yeah,
like-
it should say that.
There's like interviews, there's a lot that happens in between that time too, but yeah. And so, yeah, that's true.
I mean-
So maybe you could say by the first board meeting in April or something like
Yeah,
that.
because the first
I'd
board
be
meeting
more
in,
comfortable with that, yeah.
'cause I don't have the school calendar in front of me, but it looks like probably our only board meeting in April is going to be the 20th, maybe?
We only have one.
Is 13th if 13th is the
We'll
spring
move it.
break? it
Yeah,
would be
we've
20.
moved them before.
Yeah, the 13th is
27th.
spring break, right?
Yeah, so it would be 20th or 27th.
The
Yeah.
27th is the only regularly scheduled board meeting for the month of April.
Right.
But it is not uncommon for boards to schedule special meetings to handle this work.
Yeah.
So if the board sets, to a certain extent, their own schedule, if that makes any sense, to
20th.
conduct a meeting
Yeah.
around this.
Maybe one of those subjects that's worthy of a special meeting.
For sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
The 6th or the 20th.
yeah.
So then, could it be the last meeting in March then, if the first meeting, well, we could still say the 1st of April and then have a subsequent scheduled board meeting or special meeting scheduled after that for approval?
Like March, what if we just said March 30th instead of March 1st? That's a Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't, that's not a meeting day, but it
Right.
doesn't matter, I guess, it's just the
Right.
end of the month, that makes sense, yeah. March 30th, April 1st, whatever.
Yeah, April 1st is a Friday, so March
Then the 31st, yeah. so-
March 30th or
So should it
31st?
be the last day of March then, just have it the end of the month?
Okay.
Yeah, 31st?
Are there 31? There are 31 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a happy compromise, I think.
So then, on 2B, that sentence didn't make sense, and I don't know if the comma there is throwing me off.
Yeah, that's terrible. Well, that's,
Thank you.
yeah,
I kept looking at it and go, oh, what are we saying?
it's a mishmash of old documents.
Yeah.
We'll straighten that out. I don't even know what to say about that, other than apologies.
So I think what it probably meant to read is assist in developing and conducting thoughtful milestones and a process for gathering board, staff, parent, and community input to establish criteria for the selection process.
Yeah,
Yes.
so strike A and the comma
comma.
after thoughtful.
Is this something we'll have to pre-plan, or they'll handle all of that as far as like meetings for parents, students, community members?
We do that.
We do that. And that was, none of that is in place yet, so I'm wondering if we can schedule those ahead of time, or do we go through Melissa? I'm just kind of curious what that process looks like. Are we getting too far behind ourselves if we do that, or is it smart of us to do that? I don't know.
I think we could have some tentative dates, but I mean, that's assuming we get candidate, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It could be that we might not get candidates that we want to move forward with, so, but we could probably schedule maybe a couple of tentative dates, maybe?
Yeah, maybe we get the consultant on board and then get the dates.
Talk through that with them.
Yeah, and see
Yeah,
what his-
they probably have some insights.
I mean, there may be some back and forth on how many times he comes out to the facility and sits through those meetings, I don't know, but.
If it's someone out, if
Yeah.
it's someone, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think he should be assisting the board in that.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of the intention of that one, is to help us develop a timeline and milestones
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and reporting to the public and communications, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's in the proposal specifications for them to do.
And then to conduct a thorough search, so C, at the last few words of C say, present, highly qualified prospects who meet the established criteria. And so we haven't done that. We're having our meetings, in the next couple weeks to talk to the public about a superintendent. So I think that is something we could schedule now, is also, prior to hiring a company, we should have established the criteria, the search criteria for them. So we will need a meeting for that.
If I may, typically, if a board is going to hire an organization or individual to guide them through this work, that individual or organization will also have a plan or suggest a plan for engaging the community and giving their input on the criteria expressed. That will help. And typically, boards will draft the job description after they've gotten that feedback and after that consultant has been hired. So they guide through that work. Not saying that it's not appropriate to have that conversation with the public before you make the selection for a consultant, but that consultant, it should be definitely part of their duties to help guide the board through that and help that develop and finalize the job description, including those qualities of that candidate.
Okay.
So is that something like on the 28th with the community conversations? I noticed it's one of the items there is the superintendent search. So is that something we're going to be soliciting? Information, thoughts?
What's part of me is thinking about, I think that really, the input should also be gathered from the new board members with regards to criteria and thoughts about what a new superintendent. So I guess I would hesitate to do it that quickly, because I think that the new board should have some input and say into what that looks like. And I think if we go ahead and get the RFPs by Wednesday, November 4th, give us a week or two to sort through and select one, and then probably there'll be a pause for the holiday, would be my thought. But the new board members will be sworn in that December meeting. I think that they should be involved in having that conversation about what it is they'd like to see also in a superintendent.
Yeah, I get that. It's, what was in mind when they put that on there, the community conversations about the superintendent search? Is that just,
That's typical. Most districts do that, so they'll have a couple of forums. Well, actually, they usually have them after they've had the candidates, right? They usually have the,
that's what I thought.
so
but-
this is different for us because yeah.
But I mean-
I'm not sure how to do that. I'm not sure.
It's
what that-
already on there, so what did they have in mind when they were, it's set
Or
up?
what happened last time. Yeah.
So one of the things that we had in mind is the community is not aware of the process at all, really. So the fact that the board is going to engage in an RFP to hire a consultant and accepting those applications is news to the community at large. In addition to that, it might be an opportunity to ask the community the ways that they would prefer to engage in this process.
Okay.
So the board and others often talk about how surveys may not be ideal, but this is an opportunity to hear from the community directly in ways that they'd like to be involved in the process. And so that may help the consultant, once they're selected, then engage with the community in identifying criteria for the superintendent. So it's the preliminary conversation. It's not necessarily designed to get all of the feedback and all of their suggested qualities for a superintendent for our district. It's really to begin that conversation and possibly find out from them the best ways to contact them, maybe ways to engage their children, students in this. And so that all of that information can then be shared with the consultant and along with the board's expectations for this work,
We could
so that
say-
they can create a plan to move forward.
So we could say the suggested criteria instead of established. It seems like it's
Good idea.
sort of
Yeah.
finalized
That's a good
when we
idea.
say established.
Also, at the community conversations, we are talking, that is a question that is there, so we're going to be, I don't know what that process is going to look like, but we're going to be asking preliminary questions about what they want in a superintendent, right? I mean, to my knowledge, based on the email I got, that's what I assumed, right?
I don't know that we've done this before in that way, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I don't think that it happened prior in that way last time, I don't recall. But this is not, so it's different. So I think it'll look like, because I even wonder, I mean, is it going to be an open forum? Is it going to be where we ask people to send? I don't know what that's, I think that has to be established also, because I'm not sure.
So, Director Vengadasam, when there was a superintendent search for Dr. Watts, did the community have input prior to selecting the candidate? Like, did the community help establish the criteria?
We had, both of them came, the finalists. We didn't do it with the whole pool, but during the finalist interviews, the community was present here at the boardroom.
But they didn't help establish criteria. They weren't involved in that conversation prior.
No.
No.
But this was not, the criteria was not as, I think it was just board members discussing it, what we wanted to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important to have the stakeholders, all stakeholders, students, staff, parents, et cetera, help establish or give input on what criteria they would like to see as well.
Yeah, then we may want to clarify that and
Right.
say by community and by staff or something like that.
I think stakeholders is a good word. that covers everybody.
So do you want me to, when we finalize this, just elaborate more on who those stakeholders are in that section somehow? Okay, the stuff we mentioned, citizens, business engagement, students, union input, that kind of thing? Okay.
Stakeholders cover all that? I think if you didn't want to list all of that out.
Yeah.
I think stakeholders might be okay.
Okay.
Paul.
I keep it simple.
Yeah, I think
All
that
right,
covers.
I'll keep it simple.
Because you don't want to miss somebody and then have someone.
Then
then you have
somebody say, you forgot
right,
us.
Exactly, yeah, so.
Yeah, okay, that's good news here. All right.
Also remembering that when we do stakeholders, we can't forget like all the students, like remembering who, so it's like kind of catch-22, it's like, we want to keep it simple, but we also don't want to leave anyone out. But it's about like leaving out stakeholders. when
Yeah,
we get
students
there.
were invited, we called it community meeting. I think it was community town hall. I don't remember exact name, but community engagement or something like that.
Yeah.
But everybody was, I mean, community is a broad umbrella.
I think a lot of times we forget to invite the students, though, like, if we just even, I get daily announcements at Kent Ridge, and I know I went to a community meeting long ago, and the students said, we just heard about this in a roundabout way, because we were setting up for it here at our school, so we all decided to stay and come to this community meeting, but, if that was something that was on their calendar too, board meetings and other open community meetings, so they got an invitation in essence, that would be something to do.
I don't go to a party that I'm not invited to, so
Right.
a lot of times students, when we say community meetings, they don't feel like that's
Yeah,
them because they're not
that's true.
personally invited. So that's what they kind of think about in the future. Meetings.
Yeah, and we can work with the schools to make sure that because I get daily announcements also, so I mean, we could make sure that the schools are sharing, at some point. And they're the conduit for families as well, so to be able to share as many ways as we can.
It's adjusting as we speak. Very good.
And I was engaged in a lot of those community conversations in different areas, and I found them very helpful, but I don't think in anyone that I was at, not that they weren't invited, but I don't recall student voice in
Oh, there were
those.
quite a few at mine.
Were there?
Mhm.
I could have missed it, but I mean, where I was at,
Yeah,
I
there were
didn't.
quite a few at mine.
Yeah.
Feisty little kiddos, which was great. But
And I see Naomi's thoughtfully making changes.
Yeah.
So on C, the word established, I think Maya suggested, and I think it's good, maybe that instead of saying established criteria, saying suggested criteria?
Suggested criteria by stakeholder?
Oh, yeah.
Board members, you may be excused, I forgot my mask, I'm gonna go grab that.
Yeah.
was it appropriate?
Um,
Board of Health, we meet the established criteria. I don't think we need to say established by who, though.
That's
Yeah.
what we were talking about when we said stakeholders. So you were talking about B then?
I thought that was B, yeah.
Yeah, B sets that up. Community stakeholders input to establish criteria for the selection process.
Okay, because that's a staff, parent, and community stakeholders.
Right.
Yeah.
It might
And
just
where
be
the
better to
student
say for
there.
gathering stakeholders' input, board and stakeholders' input,
Yeah.
because then you'd have to list students.
That's what I'm
and-
saying.
Yeah,
Then we're leaving out students.
yeah, so maybe if you just say, board and stakeholders.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Naomi.
Yeah.
She's a fast typer. Great.
All I had on page 1.
Yeah. The rest of 2 looks good.
For 2, on 4B, same thing, it says proposed salary survey process necessary. Should it be just proposed salary without the D? Well, I guess we're doing that everywhere. It says, A says proposed fees for services. And it says under a subjoined contract.
Oh, yeah, that should be taken out. We took
Yeah.
out the, I thought I got that.
And also, I'm sorry, I'm just wordsmithing. Respondents should delineate anticipated expenses for each element of the search and outline other anticipated expenses instead of outlining.
Pardon me, Director Vengadasalam, would you tell me the last two changes under what number and subtitle?
It is 4A. And 4A, we strike out
That subjoined contract?
yeah, except, Mr. Brock.
I would just say, as outlined herein.
Say that sentence then, if you strike out under the subjoined contract.
Yeah, just say substantially in the form of, as outlined herein.
Okay, so Naomi, substantially the same as those services outlined herein. Respondents should delineate anticipated expenses and outline instead of outlining.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I'm sorry. What does that mean, outlining other anticipated expenses for the district? What do you mean by that?
What I meant was that they would sort of give us a hint as to what the expenses would be for them while they carry out their job. So in the RFP, for example, if they have to travel somewhere, then they would say travel, give you a range depending on where it is.
So those
Copying
would be
costs.
part of the contract that they outline for us, and they're going to hit a minimum and a maximum type of thing. Is that what you're saying?
We haven't talked about that, but I think that's one of the changes that we talked about off the dais is that we probably should flesh that out a little bit.
Flesh what part out? I'm sorry.
There was a discussion about a minimum and a not-to-exceed number, and how this board wanted to do that. One way, we could just leave it blank and say, what are your costs? What's it going to cost us?
Yeah, I think that, to me, makes more sense.
It does, because I don't think we know, I mean, do
Yeah.
we all have a good idea of what the maximum would, I mean, I think we should just leave it and see, because
we
we're
don't
gonna have
wanna-
multiple proposals also, so
Right.
I think that we'll have something to guide us. I don't know that we need to outline that.
Yeah.
So-
It might be in the board's financial best interest to not suggest a minimum or a maximum,
Right.
because that also informs the public of what you're willing to pay for something. When, then you'll likely to receive requests for proposals close to that maximum.
Right,
I would.
yeah,
And
exactly,
some are
yeah.
very creative in outlining that, and we can decide what we want and what we don't want.
So basically, we're just asking them to, in their proposal, outline what their expenses would be, a span,
Totality.
instead of giving them a number to shoot for.
Yeah, I just think that creates problems.
Yeah.
So for this contract, it's not like building contracts where we have to accept the lowest bid.
No.
This one, we can choose which services meet our needs.
Yeah, which person you like better? I mean, can you communicate with him better? Do you think he'll be better for whatever reason? Yeah.
And I don't know, so you guys have to accept the lowest bid, that's not, it's the best, what makes the most sense, it's not necessarily always the lowest bid, is that what you do, is
Yeah,
that your
that's
experience?
what I thought,
Oh.
when it comes to the construction projects.
No, it's not always the lowest bid,
It's not the
no.
lowest bid.
Oh, that's always what I thought, too. That's what I thought I heard.
It has to be taken under consideration, but if there's particulars that company meets.
Exactly,
That's how
right.
you write bids and win contracts,
Correct,
if you know
yeah,
what you're saying.
that's what our
in
keys are,
terminology.
basically, what are they offering?
Because I've done
and-
it.
Yeah, so the lowest bid might not offer everything you need,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
This is in the vein of a professional services
Professional
contract as
services
opposed to a
contract,
public works contract.
See, that's why I ask questions, and there are lots.
Absolutely. There's an art to writing these.
Yes.
Okay, so also 4F, that would be then stakeholder input we want?
Yes, instead of staff, say stakeholder.
That's just a question. I guess I'm like behind the times, I don't know, but is it still okay to say minority-owned and women-owned business enterprises are encouraged to submit proposals? Or is that verbiage changed? I'm not questioning whether that should be in there. I guess I'm questioning the terms.
I've seen it quite recently.
I
Minority.
have too, but I will confirm that as a legal question. and-
Yeah, I think it's still used. I've seen it
Yeah, that's
just
a good
as
question.
recently as a couple of days ago.
What happens if you add that locally owned too?
I know that in public works contracts, for example, locally owned cannot be a preference.
Does it really limit us to, in the search?
Well, it doesn't mean that others can't apply, just they're encouraged. That's
Oh,
not putting a
yeah, that's-
Oh, I
parameter.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's a criteria, I'm saying,
Yeah,
I mean, you always want to try, if you have
Yeah,
the
that
best
makes
company
sense.
local, it just makes sense, you
Yeah.
know?
I can certainly add that.
Or at least someone with a local office so that they're close by.
page 3.
We could just say comma, as our local search professionals, search consultants.
So, all of these, so really, so 4B, proposed salary survey, it really should be proposed, because you want them to propose to us a salary survey, yes? So that D should be gone, and when it's, and timeline and milestones, you want them to suggest a timeline of activities,
Right.
right? So the ED should be gone, if we're,
So I was reading that first sentence, so
Yeah.
proposed is okay, because when you read that first sentence,
Uh-huh.
it says proposals must include but not be limited to the
Right.
following. And
okay,
then it says proposed
Right.
fees for services.
okay, I see, okay,
I was thinking the way you,
yeah. Okay, so then maybe on E, it should say developed criteria instead of develop, who knows? It's all words. It's the only one that isn't written like that then.
yeah, staying consistent.
If we're gonna be consistent, yeah. E is the only one that doesn't, yes, there we go.
It's my Tacoma Public Schools background showing itself.
Oh,
Let's hope it's not, passed to the public, become a public school.
I'm a proud alum.
yes.
Naomi, if you could change that heading F for staff input to stakeholder input? Page 4. Okay, so, sorry, some of these things I look at, I must be getting old. The he, she, it.
Yeah,
Do we say it now?
yeah, well, that was on the
look
predecessor
back.
document.
On number 5.
Yeah. That may be overkill.
I think you could just say there.
Yeah,
You don't have to say, you can say there.
it just looked
Yeah,
bad.
it doesn't have to be, yeah, you can say there.
Sorry. That's actually somewhere else too, so we have to fix that one.
Yeah, just do there.
We
There
can
is
say
fine.
that there.
Yeah, there is fine, yeah.
But, so
Yeah, we have to
By
fix
submitting a
that.
proposal, the applicant affirms that they have not given, offered.
Yeah,
to
but they
give.
have not.
Yeah, that's a mouthy conflict provision.
Yeah.
That is like a run-on sentence almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to,
I had to read it a couple times, so.
yeah. But we don't intend to give any time.
So I'm down to 8 now, looking at the Board of Directors will review responses to the request for proposal on, so what should we put there? Depends, I don't think is a good.
Oh, that was, yeah, placeholder.
How about once received or something like that? So that way, I mean, we might not know the date at this point. Could we say, review responses to this request for proposal?
I'm sorry.
Because we said
Denise,
they're
where
due November 24th.
Are you speaking of after oral presentation?
I'm speaking on 8, selection of the consultant, where I'm saying the Board of Directors will review responses to this RFP on, it says depends in
Oh,
that
okay.
parentheses, and I think we should put, I think we should put something there besides depends. I don't know.
Yes.
I think on here, on the timeline, it says sometime between November 29th and December 3rd, so,
Can we just put that there then?
yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, we do need to put a date. I had that in my notes too,
Upon receipt.
because
Oh,
they
upon
need to
receipt.
know. They need to know when to be available, because we're going to be, the 3 new board members come December 8th, and until then, it's us,
Right.
Denise and I. So, that was like a thing to discuss when we were discussing the timeline. Do we want everything to be done by December 3rd? And if so, then we'll still be here. But after December 6th, I guess. So whatever those dates are, we need to be kind
Right.
of parallel with our timeline.
Right, so if we're shooting for like a decision, again, it could be a special meeting to decide on the vendor, to choose. And so December 1st, Wednesday, December 1st,
Well, we could do that at the regular board meeting
on December 8th?
to
No,
decide.
we can't do
No,
December
that's
8th.
too
It'll
late.
be new board members.
It'll be
too
new
late.
board
Oh,
members
new
on
board
December
members.
8th.
That's right, I forgot about that.
So
Okay.
it would have to be
So it'd have
done
to be
by
a
the
special meeting.
7th. It would have to
By
be
the 7th.
by the 7th of December.
Well, but the thing is, that's when we decide. We have to notify them if we're going to decide. So this is just our review process. This isn't us making the decision
Right.
Okay.
or taking action. So I think it makes sense during so Naomi put upon receipt, because we will begin to review them
Yeah.
upon receipt. And then that way we can, when we
Yeah.
do make our decision, it'll have to be done in a public meeting.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
instead of depends, we'll say upon receipt,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the sentence.
Well, so the issue there is you have the finalist making an oral presentation. So in our timeline, we're saying approve contract for selected firm by that week of 29th to the 3rd. So where does that fit in?
That's gonna be a challenge, because I'm thinking we would only have that week to ask for the oral presentation from the finalists. That's not gonna work.
No.
When you did this before, Director Daniels, Director Vengadaslam, did you have oral presentations by the search firms?
Yeah, that came in a lot earlier.
Okay,
Yeah, it was all on video.
so maybe,
Well, okay, sorry. No, we had the narrowed down 10 finalists. So it depends what we mean by finalists,
no,
too,
we're
because
talking about
there's two.
choosing the search firm.
Oh, gotcha.
This is
Yeah, yeah,
about Susie.
So there's
Church-
an oral, right, there's
Oh,
an
yeah,
oral
got it, got it,
presentation
got
for
it.
Did
that.
someone from the search firms do an oral presentation?
Yes,
There are questions,
they
I
all
think, that
had,
are asked there.
yeah, they all had oral presentations.
The search firm
Yes.
representative?
Yes.
So then with that, I'm not seeing how we can get this done before we're done, before December 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't-
we had meetings with
Yep.
all finalists.
Yeah, I
And
don't
we
think
had
it's going
3
to be done
finalists, I think.
by December 8th.
Yeah.
So I don't, so I guess my question would be, what is the pressing part of having this done prior to the new board members?
Well, the search firm has to begin work, and I mean, if we're trying to get done by March, at least knowing before January, because that's our only meeting in December is the 8th. And then we're pushing it out to January 12th, and then we're trying to be done by March 30th, 31st. That's really tight.
So maybe we should just expand our timeline then, because again, I don't know that we'll be able to, even if we get all the RFPs by the 24th, we won't begin anything until the 29th, which is that Monday, correct? And then, so we just have a week to review them, contact
That's not
people,
gonna
get the
work.
oral present, that's not gonna work.
No.
So, I mean, we may just have to expand our timeline.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that is I just think it would be fair to new board directors to have this much in place. Because then we might have to start over with new ideas again about, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm questioning why this would be difficult to do.
So when we
Because
get
because they are going to, so we would be busy that week. It might take 3 meetings or
Yeah,
something.
that's true.
But it can be done,
Yeah,
if
that's
you
true.
devote 2 hours to that.
Yeah.
Well, if they're also available to do the oral presentation, so I mean,
Well,
we have
that's
to
why I'm saying
schedule.
we should
Right.
put that in
We
this
have to
proposal,
schedule.
that they
Well,
need to block out that
If
time.
we just said that the oral presentations would be, whoever selected the oral presentations would be December 1st, and that was just so they would know that there's a potential that we would ask them on December 1st for an oral presentation.
Yeah, and that's what I was
So that
suggesting.
gives
put
us
the
2
dates
days to decide on the finalists, notify the finalists, and I think it's ambitious. I don't think I think it's kind of, it's a lot. I don't know that it'd be fair to them to say, okay, well, you're a finalist now, you need 2 days from now, we need you to present. I don't know that, and also giving us time, again, to review all of the, I mean, I apologize, I can devote some time, but I have a job during the day. And so, it might be difficult to do that in,
But ostensibly, if we approve this on, if we approve the RFP on October 27th, and then it gets posted the 28th or 29th, then that gives to the 24th, that gives them 1, 2, 3 weeks. And if we're already added language that said we're going to be reviewing them upon receipt, so that means someone could send us an they could respond to our RFP. There's 3 whole weeks during that time period where they could have already submitted an RFP that we could be reviewing, when they come in.
so RFPs take they're very involved for the most part. I don't know that, what is a typical timeline? Actually, 3 weeks is a short timeline for RFPs. Is that your understanding? Because that's in my experience,
Well, we
it takes
have-
at least a few weeks.
We
to
have,
develop one.
like this criteria here.
We have 28th to the 24th,
Right, but
so can
that's,
we move it up? I mean, I don't like to.
well, that's
push-
Thanksgiving weekend also, so there's,
Right.
it's a lot.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
talking about prior to that, to issue, so.
That's what Michelle was saying, if we only have 3 weeks for them to submit an RFP, I don't know that that's
If this is what they do for a
Reasonable
living, though,
timeline.
if
Yeah,
this
I
is
don't
what they
think we
do for a
should.
living, I
I
mean,
don't think we should wait on their time.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's
think if
really-
this is something someone does for a living, they're used to submitting RFPs, and they're, you know,
I think, also informing, I mean, people should know ahead of time that this is coming. We are looking for a superintendent. If that messaging can go out sooner.
I think the established folks have a lot of this stuff canned.
yeah.
And they have a website, they have pamphlets and everything else.
But we're also asking very specific criteria that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't, such as setting up community meetings
How
and
do
all.
you know that it's not, that's things that a lot of people don't?
It has happened, Denise. I mean, like Federal Way did that, they had lots of community meetings.
No, I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm saying that, do you know the timeline then from when they submitted the RFP to when they received the answers? When they include those things such as community meetings prior to and all of those things? Because it seems like it's not standard.
Yeah, I mean, those are in their proposed, like some will propose all of the details and we decide whether what we want is there or not, and we can have that conversation with them. And some might not, and so it
Yeah.
depends how
I think it's
thorough they
ambitious.
are.
I'm just putting that out there, especially if we want to get a thoughtful, thorough, I mean, I would hate to rush this process, but I understand that, but I feel like it's a very ambitious.
So again,
time.
we're looking for a search firm, right? We're not
Right.
looking for the superintendent.
Right.
So that's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, and again, that's what they do, and that they are, I think every district submits an RFP. So, and I don't think this is probably much different than any other district. We're pretty, I think this is, Mr. Brockvogel, you said you did some research, so this is probably typical of what other districts.
I don't know. I just know that there's like a range, there's a bookend. You can do an RFP and you can have an exhaustive, protracted process, or you can delegate, hiring a consultant to the administrator and they take care of it. And they bring back the consultant for your consideration.
Right,
That's sort of the abbreviated version.
Yeah.
yeah.
The request that's being made by the board is fairly standard, what you're developing. And organizations that do this for a living not only tend to have their basic proposal pre-drafted, they are also typically aware of superintendent shifts in their areas. So I would suspect, especially local organizations, are aware of local school districts across Washington state that are without a superintendent or might be engaging in a superintendent search and are probably tracking the board meetings and other items, waiting to see when those RFPs are going out or what the interest of the board is in terms of moving forward. So it is a tight schedule, but for organizations that do this, for individuals who do this for a living, they are poised for this work. And I will say that just in terms of timeline, as the board is considering this, there are other local districts that are also in the same hunt as Kent for a permanent superintendent.
Are we suggesting moving that up to November 18th? Is that what I'm hearing? Like 3 weeks?
You won't hear it from me, but you might hear it from somebody else. I'm not going to suggest that, but if you hear it from somebody else,
I
then,
mean, it's like, we do say on the last page that we're going to be reviewing these RFPs upon receipt. So as a board, if someone submits an RFP on the 17th, well, that evening, I'm probably going to look at it and I'm going to review it. And then if someone submits an RFP on the 22nd, I'm going to look at it within a day or two, et cetera, et cetera. So by the time we have a meeting on, say, the 29th or 30th, I would think we would have an idea. And if we pushed it out and said the oral presentations, be prepared for an oral presentation if we choose you, or, you're one of our finalists on, we could even do a Friday, like the 3rd or something. So if by the 30th, we left a meeting knowing who we wanted to hear an oral presentation from, if it's already in the RFP, that's a possibility. And again, I think a lot of organizations like this have people who are well-equipped and quite equipped and could probably, on the fly, just, give you the pros and pros of their organization. I was going to say the pros and cons, but usually people are only going to share their pros, right? But I just feel like as long as you make it clear that there's a potential that on, December 3rd or December 2nd, that there would be an oral presentation, that that would be part of what they assembled to get ready for their proposal.
Yeah, and I don't know what the situation is now, but when we were searching, we didn't have a lot of companies. We had maybe 5 at the most, and we narrowed it down to 3, I think.
Wow.
So I don't expect like a flood of, folks to come in.
I know there's some local folks who are doing it.
Yeah.
I just, the one part that I don't like is, I want to make sure this is a thoughtful, nobody's rush process.
Kind of like we did with the 30-day, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's things that we've tried to rush that I just would
And I
rather
just,
it be thoughtful as
that's
well.
the thing, I
Yeah.
can't see how this is going to play out. And we might, it's out there, we might not find somebody in that time that we want.
When does this RFP go out? So once we're finished today, when do you guys plan on posting it?
28th.
The 28th?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have to vote on this tomorrow, right?
No, we vote on it next week, at our next board meeting. The
Oh,
13th.
okay, right, we're only at the 13th, okay, got it.
Not the 13th, the 27th,
I-
sorry.
Yeah.
The day after we vote.
I'm
on
a
it,
week
yeah.
ahead.
We vote, then we post.
Yeah,
I'm a week ahead.
so, yeah. Anyway, I understand, I'm just saying, that's just my thought, is that I don't think we need to rush it, and I think that might make it more difficult, but I
Yeah, and
understand.
that's
I
my
understand.
thought too, I agree with that. But I'm game for whatever.
So then we would push that out to January then? Because
No,
most of December gets very difficult after about the 16th or 15th.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of talk about our commitment from the 29th to December 7th.
Right.
I mean, that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, can we finish this? If we can, I think we should move forward, because I agree that putting this for the new board members, that's going to extend everything.
yeah, I have a problem with that too.
Yeah, so,
So that's 6-7 days, right? So that's the 5 days of the 30th and then 2 days before the meeting to review the RFP applicants, schedule the oral presentations, and make a decision. Again, I think that's ambitious, and I know that I can't commit to 5 meetings, and I just can't do that. I have other things, work commitments and such, but if that's something that the board could, if that's what you guys decide, that's fine. I just am not, I don't agree with that.
Well, I know I certainly can be available.
yeah, I'm okay to commit to that.
Yeah.
And I can commit to whatever's acceptable.
I'm checking my calendar. It looks
Check you're not
okay.
going on a trip.
Yeah.
It looks
Somewhere.
fine.
Anybody planning a trip?
Yeah.
December.
I mean, I'm working full-time too, but I'd have to do after hours, obviously. after
So
5:30.
then also, then I would propose, I would propose that we have a date that we would have them do an oral presentation, so whether that's December 6th or something. So again, so when they're preparing, they would know that that was a potential for them.
And December 6th is that Monday, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea too, to have them prepared for that.
On or about
Yeah.
Yeah, I
the,
agree. And so have we?
The 6th is the last day of Hanukkah.
Oh, that too.
So just as you're making plans, it does get a little hard in December, but that Monday, December 6th is the last day of Hanukkah. So that may limit
Yeah.
possible
And that
proposal
means
submission
Hanukkah-
applicants being available.
Then that means Hanukkah starts
30th.
the 30th?
So then 7th? I don't know.
So So we'd have to listen and then decide at that meeting.
So approximately how long? So I'm just thinking about these oral presentations. So let's say we have five people who we want to hear. Is this I mean,
Well,
this
the
could
oral-
potentially be a 30-minute to 45-minute oral present. I mean, I'm wondering, we'd have to
Yeah,
narrow
the
it
oral
down.
presentation are by the finalists, so if we determine there's only two, and I think that's all we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to be all five.
Like,
So then,
we
even if
could
it's an
decide on
hour
the
each-
7th.
But even if it's an hour each, I'm just thinking about the time, because I thought you said 3 that you guys had decided on.
We did. I think
Okay.
one, we
Decided
didn't have to. Yeah,
Okay.
I ended up hearing from two.
Okay, so it'd be a couple of hours
And
on the
then,
7th at least, it sounds like.
and then an executive session, and then you come out and make a decision, yeah?
That.
So that could happen, and then we would not be intruding on Hanukkah. Thank you for pointing that out. That's important.
Yeah.
So do I hear we're agreeing on December 7th?
And then, so then I would say also.
I don't, but if you guys want to, I'll go with whatever you guys say. So no, I don't.
want to put this on
I
my
don't-
calendar.
I don't agree, but yeah,
Well-
if that's what we decide, I'll go with it for sure.
Well, it can't be, because of Hanukkah, and I do want to be respectful of that, then you couldn't do it the 30th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd,
Correct.
or 6th.
That whole week would be a
That whole
holiday.
week. So you
for-
would want to do it on the 7th.
But that gives us room
And
to
that gives-
review.
Yeah, and that gives us room from the 24th till the 7th to, on our own time, review. And so I would just say on page 3, 7, proposals must be sent or delivered to just the whole board of directors.
So they
And
don't come to the whole board of directors.
can't it just be posted on the, can it just be posted on the SharePoint? Why,
But they go to Naomi.
They go, right. and
Right.
then
Post it
She
on
posted on
SharePoint.
SharePoint.
right,
Yeah.
right. But instead of being just delivered to the president, it would just
Okay,
be
so-
delivered to the whole board?
So looking at November 24th, and also, I mean, Thanksgiving is in there, right? So
Right.
it's not an expectation of Naomi to be working during the Thanksgiving holiday posting. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be considerate of those things too.
Well, of course,
So
of course.
then November 24th is Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so I doubt that she would be, if
Right,
she got them all that morning or whatever that looks like, but the 25th, 26th, and that whole weekend, I would not expect her to post anything.
No, I would expect-
So the 29th would probably be a more
Right.
reasonable. So
Right.
that's Monday.
Right.
Now, can we,
and that
can
gives
we
you the,
change the 24th to a little bit earlier? Because maybe a couple of days earlier?
like to Monday, the 22nd?
Yeah, so that we're not interfering with holidays. You know, I don't like that either.
You know, this prohibits an email, and we may not change that, right?
Yes, I was just going to note that this outlines hard copy submission only.
Okay,
So if you want to change it to electronic submission or
Easier.
solely electronic submission,
yes.
That would be great.
That'd be easier.
that would be easier to share.
Shows you how old this,
Is there a reason why, that's what I was going to say, is there a reason why it has to be hard copy? Do they all have to be originally signed or something like that? Oh, then, yeah,
These were the olden days.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this was 2014, right?
yeah.
So,
Olden days.
No, it was a reiteration of
oh, the
2008.
previous one. Oh, sorry about
So
that.
if it was like 2 PM on the 22nd, then, and again, I'll be honest, I'm probably not even gonna look at them until the 29th myself, so the 24th, you know, if they weren't up there until the 29th or 30th, that's probably when I would look at them anyway because of the holiday. But I feel like I'd have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'd have, even then, if they didn't get posted to the share drive for us to review until the 29th, that gives you a full, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, that gives you 8 days to review that.
Does it hurt if we move it to 22nd? I'm thinking of Naomi's time, too.
Yep.
I think that's.
Yeah, the 22nd is.
I like that.
Yeah,
Okay, so change that.
So then if we do over the Thanksgiving holiday want to dig into the RFPs, we can.
That's what I'll be doing. I'll be training.
I'm gone that entire week, so, yeah.
I've made the change to reflect that proposals must be emailed to.
Thank you.
And then in turn, I can add, if you'd like, hard copy proposals will not be accepted.
I don't know why not. Do we want to say only emailed?
Only email,
I'm
electronic.
asking, do we, why, I guess, what would be the reason for saying that? Because I know people have them delivered FedEx and other things.
That certainly would be up to you.
Then
It,
somebody has to scan it.
Yeah.
No, they're asking for copies. They said 6 copies.
Oh, yeah.
if we did paper copies, I could certainly notify you that there's something to pick up.
Yeah.
But if
That
it's
makes sense. I see what you're
electronic,
saying.
Yeah.
Give it to us.
I
Got
could
it.
share it
That makes sense.
quickly if it's electronic.
That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying
Yeah,
that.
so you're taking off the applicants must submit an original plus 6 copies. Okay.
And then there'll be an email somewhere on there, right? Am I missing that?
She did. She said electronic.
Yeah.
Oh, to send it, which is
Yeah.
which email?
What email to
Hers
send
and
it to.
mine, probably. And might want to go ahead and put 2 p.m. Pacific time, because if they're from the East Coast or,
That's a good idea.
that
Yeah.
difference, that time difference, that'd be like 5 p.m. their time.
Yeah, Pacific Standard.
Oh, yeah, daylight savings time ends.
Okay.
Well, as to section 8, did we get I guess I got a little lost in those dates. The oral presentation on or about, did we land on a date for that?
December 7th.
Okay.
So do you want to say, after finalist presentation should include, all proposers will receive written notification of the decision of the board. If the board selects a consultant, the parties will be prepared, should be prepared to, is that what it is, or is that before we select a consultant? After we receive the proposals, then we do the oral, is that when proposers should be prepared to present oral presentation on or before December, what was the date? 7th.
December 7th.
She's putting the emails in there first.
Should we say on or before? I feel like we should state the
December
date.
7th?
Yeah,
Okay.
just, it's
So that
December.
they block it out.
On December 7th.
That works.
So I have a question. Do we, maybe I'm thinking too big, but can we add, if we select 2 finalists, do we have to do a live, meeting where they present, or can they submit a video? Is it a requirement for us to meet and watch presentations?
We have questions sometimes, and so, yeah.
Okay.
And it could be a Zoom. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be,
Yeah.
it could be a Zoom meeting too, so they don't have to be, they likely won't be. If it's out of town or something, I'm sure it'd be a Zoom meeting, so.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And do we want to specify that in there too? Oral presentations either in person or
That may broaden your market.
over Zoom or whatever.
yeah.
Zoom, Teams. Carrier pigeon, I don't know.
So Naomi, did you get the other sentence where we talked about they should be prepared for the presentation December 7th?
Where would you like that added?
So probably after finalist presentation should include the person who will be providing consultant services to the board. If selected, proposers should be prepared to present oral presentation if requested on December 7th. That means if we select and move forward with the ones that we want to do that with, right? Okay.
Seventh? What day is that?
It's a Tuesday right before our meeting.
And what we
So
talked,
what did you, can you read that? What does it say? It says, does it go into the will receive written notification?
Oh, let's see.
Okay,
All
so I
proposers
have
should be prepared to make a presentation.
So December 7th, if we get that and we approve the contract, then the next day is the board meeting with new board members.
Yeah,
right,
And so we're not approving,
yeah.
new board members are approving something. So the three of you will have to make sure you're here, basically.
yeah.
Otherwise, you can't, they can't vote on something that they weren't part of.
Right.
Yeah,
How about final presenters?
So
You'll all
are
be
you-
here.
I think you swear. So are we saying that the two board members that are sworn in would be told they can't vote on that?
The three board members, they could, but it
Oh,
wouldn't
excuse me.
make sense.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well,
it's just
two
select, it's just,
It's going to
They
be,
weren't part of the
the
process.
meeting before, the day before is going to be an open public meeting, so
they could be watching.
they could watch online or in person and definitely listen to the proposals, you know, et cetera, so then they could make an informed decision the next day.
But three of you would pass it, so,
Yeah, I mean, what,
yeah, it's not.
Makes
no,
sense.
no, it
Okay,
matters
so I was
so
just
much.
wondering how that looked publicly.
because you know how new board members typically abstain if they weren't.
No,
part of
I
the-
understand what you're saying. I'm
then
just saying,
you don't-
are they going to explain that they can't vote, or are they going
Well, I
to
was
just
gonna
let it
say,
go?
that might need to be explained, because I don't know if they would know to, I mean, you know what I'm saying? If it's
Right.
not explained.
But
Um,
if they've watched the oral presentations and things like that, they might feel comfortable. If they've watched, you know, any candidates can watch the meetings prior to then, you know, candidates could be watching the meeting right now and,
Yeah, because when I came on board, there was a levy decision that was really critical that I voted on. I didn't take part in the previous discussions,
Okay,
but I
that's
was
good
up to date.
Good to know.
So it can happen. I guess you just don't want the new board members to feel uncomfortable
They have
with
to
a decision.
make a
Yeah.
decision. Because you couldn't legally stop them, I don't think.
No.
No,
nor should you.
and it can be explained by the board president at that time, explained prior to, during the discussion period, new board members, you have the option of abstaining if you choose because you've not been, or if you have been, you can kind of explain, whoever it is can explain that to them.
As long as we understand that we have to do that, not forget. There's a lot to
Lot to
this.
think, yeah.
There's a lot to this to get it right. That's what I'm saying, in a short period of time.
So I think that's
Okay,
about it.
so the only
I
other thing is
did-
to delete the "it's" in number 9.
Oh,
Yes,
change
yes,
it to they? Yeah.
I will.
With their proposal.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Do these last two highlighted sentences read as you wish,
Okay, that makes sense.
So,
It
but
does.
none of it really makes sense.
and then remove this?
No,
Yeah,
they
that's
are,
right.
oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, no,
Don't
we
you
also,
know?
we do, contacted, perfect. Okay,
Okay, and then remove this?
yeah, yeah. And so you guys, we'll receive written decision because it could, we won't be writing a letter, sending it to them, right? It could be email or, it'll be
Yeah.
electronic. Okay, yes. Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
You like that, deleting.
Do we want to just read number 8? It's just
Yeah.
to make sure it's all.
Yeah, I did.
So, could you read it, Naomi, just to,
Yeah, I can't see that.
You would like me to read number 8?
yes, please.
And I don't have my glasses.
Section 8, selection of the consultant. The Board of Directors will review responses to this request for proposal upon receipt and will invite the finalists to make an oral presentation, either in person or via Zoom. Finalists' presentations should include the person who will be providing the consultant services to the board if selected. All proposers should be prepared to make an oral presentation, if selected, on Tuesday, December 7th. Final presenters will be contacted and scheduled for their presentation time. If the board selects a consultant, the parties will negotiate a consultant services contract, which will be an independent contractor agreement. Approval of the contract will take place in an open public meeting of the Board of Directors at time to be determined. At the time.
Or at a time to be
At a
determined.
time.
But don't we know the time?
Yeah, it's the board meeting on the 8th.
I think we're assuming everything is gonna go smoothly. And that's a big assumption, and so I would just leave it at that, because
Yeah.
that's a big assumption.
I mean, because the
I'm just
RFP,
saying.
we will select the vendor on the 8th. We will select the vendor on the 8th. That vote will take place on the 8th. But then a contract has to be drawn up, and that's a separate vote, yes? Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
got it. That
yeah,
was
so
my-
the approval
Yes.
of the contract. Okay, yeah. that makes
Yes,
sense.
because, and so then,
Decision is correct.
right, so we don't drop the contract until we decide on the vendor. Then Mr. Brockvogel and the vendor will drop a contract, and we'll approve that probably in January. Still late, because then January, February, March, that's 3 months to find a superintendent.
Yeah.
I would suggest too that the board at some point have a conversation about an alternative timeline.
Right,
So you worked out some of the details of a best case scenario.
that's right.
I would consider, so what happens if you don't get enough responses to the RFP, or none of them are suitable?
And that happens.
Or what happens if the vote on December 8th does not turn out the way you intend?
Right.
Or what happens if you don't get the quality of candidate pool that you'd like in the late winter, early spring? So as you continue to go through this process, that might be something you want to consider as well.
Right.
Yeah, Dr. Herman, I think it's a good point. The only thing in that is that this is something the old board members are starting, so we're trying to finish. Whereas, there will be a situation where you may not have the candidates, and the new board will have to start from scratch.
Yep.
So
Right.
that's the difference there, and so
Yeah.
that's something you all will need to
Yep.
figure out.
Yep.
'Cause that happened with Dr. Watts too. We had to do the second round.
And is it possible that one of the proposals from one of these consulting organizations would be so outstanding that we wouldn't even have to have a in-person or,
Oh, I'm sure.
presentation?
Also possible that
Yeah.
they're all so bad that we wouldn't choose them. I mean, you never know what's going to
I
happen,
know,
right? Or
I
somebody might know something personally about a firm and say, we are not going to use that. Or, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen, which is kind of the danger of rushing.
I know, that's
Rushing these things, but-
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just still feel like we're behind the eight ball. I feel like we're like 2 months behind on even this work, so.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we are finished. Anything else that we need?
We will behind the scenes look through this, make sure all your changes are based on our notes, and we'll have it before you.
Wonderful.
For
Thank you
authorization.
so much for your quick wordsmithing there.
You're welcome.
So our work session is adjourned.